Patricia thought she was untouchable, the queen of Oakwood Estates, ready to crush anyone who dared to stand in her way. But what she didn't know was that the man she chose to target wasn't just another homeowner. He was someone with a badge, someone who held her future in his hands. This is the story of how one HOA president pushed too far and discovered that some battles can end careers. The trouble started small, the way it always does in neighborhoods like Oakwood. A parking dispute here, a note about lawn length there. But in Oakwood, the HOA wasn't just about rules. It was about Patricia. She wasn't just the president of the board, she was its dictator. Her voice carried weight, her smile masked her schemes, and her grip on the neighborhood was absolute. For years, no one dared to challenge her, until you moved in. At first, you tried to keep the peace. You followed the rules, paid your dues, even waved politely when Patricia paraded down the street with her clipboard. But soon, the letters started coming. Violation, warning, final, notice, each one more ridiculous than the last. Grass too green, mailbox not polished, curtains too dark for the neighborhood aesthetic. You laughed it off at first, but Patricia wasn't laughing. She had decided, for reasons you couldn't understand, that you were her new target. Things escalated quickly. The warnings turned into fines. The gossip turned into whispers, and before long, Patricia had the entire HOA watching your every move. And if that wasn't enough, her teenage son Tyler joined in, egged on by his mother. Eggs on your car, trash dumped in your yard, mocking messages written in chalk across your driveway. It wasn't just harassment, it was war. But while Patricia played her games, you stayed calm. You didn't shout. You didn't lash out. Instead, you documented everything. Security cameras, recordings, photos, time-stamped logs. Every fine, every threat, every petty act of retaliation went neatly into a file. Patricia thought she was wearing you down. In reality, you were building a case. The night of the breaking point came when you returned home to find your car keyed, deep scratches down both sides, and Tyler's laughter echoing from across the street. Patricia stood in her driveway, arms crossed, a smirk tugging at her lips. "Maybe this neighborhood isn't for you," she called out, loud enough for every neighbor to hear. That was the moment you decided it was time to end this. The HOA board hearing was supposed to be Patricia's victory lap. She walked into that meeting room like a queen entering her throne room, her loyal board members seated like subjects waiting to applaud. Neighbors filled the chairs, whispering, some fearful, some curious. Patricia stood at the front, papers in hand, ready to bury you under a mountain of fabricated complaints. She smiled when you walked in, the kind of smile a predator gives its prey. "Ah, glad you could join us," she purred. "We'll be discussing your ongoing issues." She thought this was her stage. She didn't realize it was about to become her downfall. As Patricia launched into her performance, listing fines, describing disturbances, painting you as a disruptive neighbor, you stayed silent, calm, unshaken. Then, when she was finished, you stood. "I appreciate the opportunity to respond," you said, your voice steady but sharp enough to make the room go quiet. You pulled out a folder thick with evidence and began laying it out. First came the photos, clear shots of Tyler vandalizing your car, dumping trash, chalking insults on your driveway. Then the audio recordings, Patricia's voice, unmistakable, coaching her son, laughing about how she'd make you regret moving here. Gasps rippled through the room. Patricia's smile faltered. Then you played the video. Grainy at first, but clear enough. Patricia herself, late at night, sneaking into your yard, snapping pictures of your windows, muttering to herself about how she'd nail you for something. The room erupted. Neighbors who once feared Patricia now turned to look at her with open disgust. Her iron grip on Oakwood was slipping, and fast. But you weren't finished. You leaned on the podium, looked Patricia straight in the eye, and said, "You've accused me of breaking the rules, but what you've really broken is the trust of this entire community. You let that hang in the air," the silence deafening. Patricia stammered, tried to recover, tried to twist the narrative, but it was too late. The evidence spoke louder than her words. And then came the moment that no one in Oakwood would ever forget. You reached into your pocket slowly, deliberately, and pulled out your badge. The room froze. Patricia's eyes widened, her face draining of color. Neighbors gasped. Reporters leaned forward. And even the board members, her supposed allies, sat stunned. You placed the badge on the podium and said, "You wanted the police involved? You got them, because I'm not just your neighbor. I'm the chief of police." The effect was instant. Patricia's power evaporated. The smirk was gone, replaced by raw panic. Tyler slouched low in his seat, suddenly realizing this wasn't just neighborhood drama anymore. And the neighbors? They erupted, some in applause, some in shock, all in disbelief that the Queen of Oakwood had just been dethroned in front of their eyes. The city officials didn't hesitate. Patricia's complaints were dismissed immediately. Tyler's vandalism, caught on camera, led to his arrest right there in the hearing room. Patricia tried to protest, screaming that it wasn't fair, that she was the victim, but the room had turned on her. Neighbors who once nodded at her every word now glared at her with contempt. Her reign was over. As Patricia was escorted out, muttering excuses, you stood tall, not angry, not gloating, just calm. Resolved. The war was over and Oakwood was free, but the story didn't end there. Patricia's downfall rippled through the entire HOA. The board was restructured. Rules were rewritten. Neighbors who had once lived in fear now felt relief. And for the first time in years, Oakwood Estates felt like a community again. And as for you, you earned more than respect. You left a mark. Because Patricia thought she was fighting a simple neighbor. She thought she was untouchable, that her title gave her power. But what she never realized was that her war wasn't with a resident at all. It was with the chief of police. And in Oakwood Estates, that was a battle she was destined to lose. So the next time someone underestimates you, remember this: power built on fear always crumbles. But power built on truth, that's unshakable. And Patricia learned that lesson the hardest way possible. If this story hit you the way it hit Oakwood, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes the biggest changes come when ordinary people stand up against those who think they're untouchable. And don't forget, subscribe to HOA Story.